Joining us now is CBS News legal analyst Jack Ford. Hi, Jack. Good morning.
Good morning, Maggie.
So he says, he admits he was there. He shook her. They had an argument, hit her head against the wall several times. She had all these scrapes and bruises. She had an eye swollen shut. Legally, does that sound like it could be an accident?
Well, it's interesting. You know, you're not surprised that his attorney is saying, given these facts, it was an accident. You can have a situation where somebody dies because of somebody else's conduct, and it might not be criminal. You know, classic illustration on a job site, and two guys are working, and one has a piece of lumber in his hand. He turns around, hits the other accidentally, knocks him off the roof. He hits his head and dies. Might be some civil responsibility. It's not a criminal case. But here, quite candidly, it's going to be a tougher sell because you have a whole series of intentional conduct. Intentionally kicking in the door to her bedroom, grabbing her. This isn't a situation where he said, I went to talk to her and I just sort of grabbed her to turn her around and she tripped on something, fell and hit her head. What he says, according to the police, is he's shaking her and repeatedly her head is banging against the wall. That gives you intentional conduct. You might not have intended to kill her, but enough intentional conduct that I think accident, pure accident, would be a tough sell here.
But he's charged with first-degree murder. If he, in fact, didn't intend to kill her, could it still be murder?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think a lot of people are surprised by this. You can be found guilty of murder most jurisdictions. Obviously, if you intend to kill somebody, that's the easy one. You take a gun, you put it to their head, you pull the trigger. But in most jurisdictions, they also say if you intended to harm somebody seriously and they died, even though you didn't intend to kill them, you can still be guilty of murder. Classic illustration, take a baseball bat and you swing at somebody's head. You were so angry at them, you said, I didn't mean to kill them, but I certainly knew I was going to hurt them seriously. And in this situation, if I'm the prosecutor, I'm saying kicking in a door, grabbing somebody, banging their head against the wall, you intended to harm them there. So it could be murder, could be a manslaughter, where the standard is if you were reckless in your conduct and you engaged in some sort of conduct where you knew there was a real possibility or probability that somebody could die, then you get into the manslaughter category.
What about this arrest 2 years ago? He has apparently a history of violence. Police had to use force, a taser on him. Will that play into this case, you think?
That's also really interesting because most people would think, and whenever you talk to jurors and ask them this, they'll tell you, I want to know everything I can about somebody before I pass judgment on him. And a juror will say, I'd like to know if he'd been in trouble before. But the law says, generally speaking, no. It's kind of counterintuitive. We ask jurors to do a counterintuitive thing, and we say to them, we want you to decide this case based on these facts alone here, not what somebody did in the past. There's some exceptions. Yeah. But in this situation, I don't think, unless there's some unusual circumstances that come out to play, generally speaking, a judge is probably going to say here, what he did, you know, in a drunken situation a couple of years ago with a police officer, not going to come into this case.
I can understand that, because just because he was drunk and violent 2 years ago doesn't mean that he killed somebody now.
Exactly.
Innocent till proven guilty.
Yeah.
Jack Ford, thank you very much.
Maggie.
A lot happens early on The Early Show, weekday mornings on CBS.